What I see in 2023 is, well, a lot more volatility, but I also see some kind of major crisis. It's going to be a black swan. So it's going to be something that nobody can see coming. So I can't get very specific. It could come from many, many areas. And I believe that will happen the first half of the year, sometime in the first half of the year. We are in the beginning stages of it. I think it will become more obvious and escalate. And, to kind of add to those geopolitical tensions, we've got the political tensions between the US and China. There's nothing here that I'm actually specifically waiting for. Really, I think the global push to raising interest rates is really breaking the very, very fragile system that we have in place right now. So, I would really say that central banks have intentionally pushed the world to the brink of collapse. Second of all, can they kick the can down the road? Well, they've been kicking the can down the road. This is a global financial earthquake. If you are in an earthquake, you need to be someplace safe. If you are not someplace safe, you could die. And I'm being that serious because that's what this is. What was JP Morgan that said only gold is money, everything else is credit? Yeah. Well, when you have credit, you're tied to interest rates, aren't you? And I'm also saying that the value of the global currency, look, the whole world has been experiencing this inflation. And so where they had all of the inflation held in the stock market, the bond market, the real estate market, the markets that they specifically targeted for reflation, that inflation is now coming out to the broader public. But if you look at the data, there's virtually no purchasing power left in the fiat money, in any of the currencies. So if you go into the FRED, the FRED, which is the Federal Reserve Education Department, and in that little search bar, you put in purchasing power of the consumer dollar, purchasing power of the consumer dollar. What you're going to see is that officially we have roughly 3 cents left out of that original dollar's worth of purchasing power. So there's no purchasing power left. They have to attack principle, which is what the negative interest rate experiment was about. And it didn't generate any more stimulation of the economy than just dropping the interest rates to zero. So the problem is they're out of tools. There's no more purchasing power to inflate away, and they're having trouble. I know globally they're trying to raise interest rates right now. That's so they can lower them again. So they're out of tools. So we're at the end of this currency life cycle. The rapid inflation that the world is experiencing, I mean, how many times do you see that reference back to 1980, 1982, 1971, 1933, blah, 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 right? Well, what was happening during those periods of time is that we were transitioning. We shifted from one monetary regime to a new monetary regime. That's what was happening. Even though they referenced to it, I just found an article, and I actually used it today. It was the Financial Times. Actually, not only did they say the last time they saw central banks buying this much gold was 1967, but they also referenced the fact that it was a monetary regime shift. That's the first newspaper article that I have read that they actually made that point. Because they'll tell you that, but they don't want you to understand that we are completely changing. And of course, this next piece, the digital, now they want to take us to a digital standard. And then that digital standard, what they're actually doing is redefining money. Because money is supposed to have this is the way it was sold to us, this is the way it was on the gold standard, had 4 components. It was a tool of measure, a tool of barter, a short-term store of value, so you're fairly paid for your labor, and a long-term store of value so that no matter when you use that money, you are always fairly paid. Well, they took the third one out. I don't know when they changed this, but I was doing a piece back in October, and so I was doing some research on it, and I'm like, wait, when did they only make 3 pillars of money? I mean, it's more honest because inflation has robbed you of all that purchasing power, but I can't tell you because they scrubbed all their documentation. What gold has done for 6,000 years is hold your purchasing power value intact over time. That is the single most important function that it performs. And the reason why it does that is because it is the asset, well, gold, physical gold and silver are monetary assets that have the broadest base of functionality and the broadest base of buyer. In other words, both gold and silver are used in every single sector of the global economy. So manufacturing, financial, art, food, medical, space, electronics, on and on and on and on and on. It's used everywhere, which means you have the broadest base of demand because you've got a whole bunch of industries that use physical gold and silver. So that's why it's never gone to zero. Tell me any other asset or any other asset class that can be used in every single sector. And if you don't have this to hold your purchasing power, what do you got? They can go in and they can just take you to negative rates. There's no value in this $100 bill. But for me, I want to hold my purchasing power. I don't want them to have that control. And I can easily convert this into whatever the currency is. Actually, anywhere in the world, I can take this, stick it in my pocket, go anywhere and convert it into the local currency so that I can barter with it. History shows, remember, I've got the broadest base of demand. So the way that I convert it is I simply sell it. And then when they make payment to me, it's in that new currency. They're not giving me change for my gold. They're just converting it. I sell it, and that money goes into my account. So you should be buying gold and holding gold for the same exact reason that central bankers are, so that you can stay in control. Inflation causes nominal confusion. So yes, exactly, they know that. People get all caught up in the numbers, but the real trend, the trend that we need to be paying attention to, because that's the one that really impacts us, it's not how many dollars you have, it's what you can convert them into. In Zimbabwe, you can be a billionaire and not be able to afford 3 eggs. So if what you have can only be converted into garbage, then the real trend is in the purchasing power, which over 4,800 times, so historically, has gone to zero.